You're with Karen on Accentuate the Positive, and I am so delighted to have on the phone with me Tom Shadyac, who is, according to him, no, I won't say it, a spiritual sexy guru, writer, director, producer, Hollywood movie star. He's made this fabulous documentary called I Am. I'm so happy to welcome you. Hi, Tom.
Thank you. Hello, and let me explain to your audience that you asked me how to describe myself, and I said, just please use the word sexy, if at all possible. So forgive me.
Look, that's fine with me.
It's too late to erase it, but we'll move on in good spirit. So thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Oh, look, you've got the Jesus look going on with the long hair and everything. I've got to say, I love that. Now, you've made a lot of Hollywood comedies, and I'm sure people might not know you, but they know your work. Do you want to tell people some of your comedies?
Yes, my first film corrupted the youth. It was called Ace Ventura: Pet Detective.
Yeah.
Starring Jim Carrey, and from then on, I did a bunch of comedies, Nutty Professor with Eddie Murphy, Liar, Liar again with Jim. I did a film called Patch Adams, Bruce Almighty, Evan Almighty, and I produced a couple, I now pronounce you Chuck and Larry with Adam Sandler, and a movie called Accepted with Jonah Hill and Justin Long. So mostly comedies have been my forte.
Well, I have to say, you've been having a good time, and you've had a bit of a transformation during all this. Your story is that you went out there and you became successful and you moved into the big house and you had all the trappings and it was all fabulous and you were doing well. But what you noticed was that a lot of the people around you who were rich and wealthy and famous and fabulous were not as happy as your gardener, who was not rich and famous. Can you explain to me what happened to you when you had this sort of epiphany, or you started thinking about life in a much deeper way? What was going on for you?
Well, I had a very significant moment at one time, and then other than that one moment, it was kind of a gradual awakening and awareness to the fact that things were not adding up. Mm-hmm. And that significant moment was, I had been a struggling artist for about 11 years. I couldn't quite get that job that would lock me into, a permanent state of work or higher ability. And finally, after 11 years, I had Ace Ventura hit and then The Nutty Professor, and I bought a house that I'd always kind of dreamed of buying. It was the house that my culture looked at it as a successful model of living, and it was in Beverly Hills. Mm-hmm. And the night that I moved into that house, after the movers had left, I stood in the hallway, and it hit me very tangibly and very real that it absolutely did not make me any happier, that it didn't do what I was promised or what I was led to believe it would do. Mm-hmm. And so from then on, it was, of course, a questioning, and I saw, as you said, that many of the people who were leading the supposed good life were neither happier than some of the simple people that I knew in my life who had much more, what you would call less successful lives according to the paradigm. Mm-hmm. My gardener had a beauty and a look in his eye that could not be explained by the success models of our culture. Mm-hmm. And that's actually how I birthed the movie Happy, which I believe you saw that a friend of mine made, Rocco Bellic.
Love it.
And it was because I saw that America was number one in terms of military might and GDP and wealth, but they were never number one in terms of happiness. Mm-hmm. They were number 25 at the time. Countries like Bangladesh were outranking America in terms of quality of life, and I thought, wow, we're missing something. And so that's what that movie was about, and my life was very much a petri dish of that. I started to question my life and to give more of my resources away, and the more I involved myself in the things that do make for a happy life, the happier I got. I embraced community and simplicity and service, and I just found it flipped the paradigm on its head.
Yeah, so this is what you're up to now. You're up to community and service and connectivity, and of course you've made this incredible documentary called I Am, which started, when did you start this journey making the documentary, and what led to you making this documentary?
Well, I had been changing my life for about 10 to 15 years. That realization came way back in, the mid-'90s.
Well, I have to say, a lot of the comedies that you made have a message, like Bruce Almighty and Patch Adams.
Yeah, of course. It wasn't like I was running around as a bad, evil person.
No, you were.
I hoped that I was, I had good intentions with the work that I did, and I believe that there's much good energy that was put into the world by that work. Laughter is itself is holy. But The way I did business, the accepted model is to take as much as you can, to set yourself on top of the social heap, if you will, and to take as much as you can. And as an artist now, I reject that way. I think it's part of the poison that creates the society we have. There's a reason that so many are called haves, so few, I should say, are called haves, and so many are called have-nots. And I was participating in that. So that's what I really began to question in my life. Not films themselves, not the beautiful stories we tell to connect us to each other, to raise a dialogue about what it means to be human, but the way we do business with each other, I think, is at the root of it. That was going on some 15 years ago, and what happened was I began changing my life. I actually had moved into a mobile home park, which is way out of the paradigm here in America. It's a beautiful place where I live, but it's still a mobile home park. People thought I was crazy. And then I got into a bike accident where I almost died. And I had a concussion that would not go away. It's called post-concussion syndrome, and it's quite torturous. And I thought, this is my last chapter. I'm kind of done. And so when I realized that, I became charged and compelled to tell my story. I didn't want to die with my journey inside of me. You know, not many people had known what I had been doing, the questions I'd been asking, some of the thoughts and insights that had come, and I wanted to share that with I Am.
Definitely. And that's what you've done with the movie. I love that. I remember Wayne Dyer said something, I don't want to die with my music left inside of me. I want to get all my music out of me. And
oh, that's beautiful. Go, Brother Wayne.
Brother Wayne. Don't you love it? Don't you love it? And that's what you've done with I Am. But I have to say, you were still singing your music when you were making the comedies. But you said this word poison. That's a very strong word, because I've worked in the film industry, and I have been one of the ones. I've done many things, but I've also been a caterer, you know, earning $15 an hour, while the fat cats are earning $25,000 an hour. And there is this huge contrast in the wages in the film industry. So I've been one of the little guys down at the bottom watching the big guys sit around, and I was feeding them and working and sweating in the back of this hot truck. And it's been, how's this new model working for you? Because having seen the way the film industry does work, I'm interested to hear how this new model that you've got, where everyone is equal, how that's working for you.
Well, you know, I don't want to say it's precisely equal, but certainly the peaks and valleys can be much closer than they are right now. So what I do, the model that I personally subscribe to, and I'm not interested in changing the system. I want people to do what is true for them.
Right.
So I don't want to make any judgments about how others do business in their own lives, but I have found a power in what is animating me. So the way I do it now is I ask for a Directors Guild minimum. That's the least I can take because I'm a part of a union here in America. I cannot legally do a picture. And it's plenty of money for my needs. The question we never ask in our culture is, how much do I need to lead a life that's beautiful, filled with meaning and purpose and joy? And so that means your medical needs should be covered, your need for shelter should be covered, food should be covered, and you should have what you need to explore a passion. If you like to surf, you should be able to surf. But above that, money and resources do not only not make you happier, they can invert your happiness. So I take Directors Guild minimum. It's what I did on the movie I Am. And then whatever other income is generated through what you might call my power, my producing of a picture, directing of a picture, it goes into a fund that is not mine, but is a foundation that then goes back to the common good. So it goes back to healing the natural world, to people who need medical treatment. We help to free slaves. There's 27 million slaves still in the world, et cetera. So it's what I think art is really rooted in. Art is a service, and artists, I believe, are given gifts. You know, I've never thought of a good idea in my life. I've gotten many, I think, good ideas, and those are gifts. And I think one of the poisons, and I'll use the word again, is that we claim that we own those gifts instead of sharing those gifts with the world.
Yeah.
And again, it's not just artists. It's the way we do everything.
It's the way we download.
If you're the best at something, you're supposed to charge the highest prices, and I think that is has to be called into question.
Yeah, I've got to say, I do agree with you. I do agree with you to some extent. But Deepak Chopra, for instance, said that he was very happy at the way he had the ability to earn lots of money because he can use that money to educate others. And so he's happy. Well, he charges a lot for his seminars. Again,
no judgment of others. And it's really true to one's intention. But I find that for me, I say, why be greedy now to be generous later?
Yeah.
I'm sure Jesus was told that he was a great speaker and he could make a lot of money for his speeches, and you could heal hunger that way. And I'm sure Jesus said, you know what, guys, money is not going to heal hunger. Love and committed people will heal hunger.
Yeah.
So, look, it may be someone's path that they want to, quote, charge a lot of money and then use that money. So be it. Again, I take Directors Guild minimum for myself, and then I still use whatever power I have to create a foundation for others. I just don't want that money to be called mine in the first place, because I don't believe it is mine in the first place. So Mr. Chopra may be doing the same thing, but just under different definitions.
Yes.
The intention is everything. If you are using your life to serve others, I think that's all that matters. If your intention is to separate yourself out, put yourself up number one, set yourself up above and beyond all others, then I think that intention is not going to create as wealthy a life as sharing your life.
Well, I absolutely agree with you because, one of my favourite sayings is contributing to others is about the most fun you can have standing up. And, I teach this stuff, this sort of happy journey, whatever. And what I found is through my journey that when I am talking to people like you or contributing to others or having a radio show that helps uplift people or educates people, it's just about the most fun you can have standing up. And so everyone's crying out for joy, happiness. I want to be happy. I want to be happy. I want to have a good life. I want to have a good life. And you sort of say, well, connect with others, contribute with others, you'll have a great life. So I see it more as this education, that we're educating people to happiness, I suppose, rather than striving for success. This is what Charlie Johnson was talking about.
I agree. And education is all based on who we are. And if we continue to strive to be number one, we're educating our children in the next generation to strive to be number one. And we're not really educating them to have the foundation and the principles that will lead to a happy, meaningful life. You said it, and Gandhi has said it very simply. If you want to find yourself, lose yourself in the service of others.
Yeah.
And it's how we build meaning, because we are so wired and hardwired for connection and for love and for the brother and sisterhood of embracing that brotherhood and sisterhood, that's what actually works.
It absolutely, I so agree. So I'm lost in your words. I could listen to you talk all day. But anyway, now you've been on this amazing journey. You started showing the film in February 2011. Is that correct?
Yes, that sounds right. Uh-huh.
And then festivals and groups and people all over the States invited you to show the film, to talk about the film. Universities, I saw you spoke at schools and universities. Tell me what this journey's been like for you, as opposed to your Hollywood journey. This journey of talking to people and connecting and educating and showing your film. How's that been for you?
Actually, I think the date was wrong, but I don't know the date, but it was in May. We premiered at a film festival in Telluride, Colorado. And it's called Mountain Film, and we were blessed to win the Audience Choice Award and the Student Choice Award, and that's kind of where we realized that we had something that was touching audiences. I'll tell you, part of the journey is reflected in what happened at that festival. We got a crazy ovation. It was somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes of standing ovation at that festival. And I realized then that they weren't standing up just for the film. They were standing up for what they already knew was true in their own hearts.
Oh, yeah,
so the more we travel with this film, what we find, the power that we have found in the film, is it has the power to touch people and express what they know needs to be expressed and is not being talked about. We do have this model where we look at people who are successful in a very linear way. Oh, they have a certain amount of money and a certain job status. And we know in our hearts that success is not linear. We know that the most powerful moments in our lives, love of a spouse or a child, they're not measurable. And so this model that we all subscribe to, or many of us subscribe to, has got to be rethought. And we find this everywhere we go. We're met with people who say that the film is changing their perspective. And I don't know if it changes their perspective as much as it reawakens what has already been there. The child has the ultimate wisdom. Lao Tzu writes a poem about the wisdom of the child. And the child knows what a meaningful life is. He knows it's about love because he needs that parent. He needs that nourishment, not just physical but emotional. The child is engaged in learning at all times, very curious, very inquisitive, and the child is engaged in play and celebration. And we forget that. We have these linear, hierarchical benchmarks that we say, once I get that, then it will be a happy life. And it's the journey. Happiness is not a destination. It's the journey.
It's a plaque on my wall.
Yeah. It's said that the journey is a destination was said by a beautiful young man, Dan Eldon, who was killed serving others in Africa as a young man, a 22-year-old Reuters journalist. But see, we know all this stuff. I'd never met anybody on my journey in screening this film that doesn't say amen and hallelujah to the principles.
Yeah.
The second you ask them to walk those principles in terms of their economic life, in other words, not to be about setting yourself up as number one, to taking care of yourself in isolation, and as we look at the science of it, there really is no me without you. Once those things get talked about, then you find fear comes up.
Yeah.
And the fear is what has to be overcome, because everybody is afraid that they're going to die, that they're not going to have enough food to eat. No one's going to take care of them.
That they're not going to survive.
Right, they're not going to survive.
I have to say, Tom, that this is part of the consciousness of this show. I call it Accentuate the Positive because we are bombarded in our local media with negative fear-based messages that we're not going to survive, that we have to work hard to survive, that we have to struggle, that we have to get discounts because we can't afford it, and the price of petrol's going up and we're not going to survive, It's very much a message that the media pumps out, our local television, our local radio, the news every half an hour is just putting out how we're not going to survive, and isn't it terrible? So I put this show forward as something different, as something new.
Well, I think it's essential what you're doing.
It's essential,
and it is, and but I will also say that when I believe that media, that what you might call the negative media, the fear-based media, is a reflection of the fear that still exists in our hearts.
Oh, absolutely.
So when that fear starts to heal, that media will heal. And your show undoubtedly is a reflection of a consciousness shift.
Definitely.
And you and your show, I'm sure, were called forward because many people, a certain critical mass of people, are beginning to heal that fear. And so you manifest. Your show comes forward and says yes to that, and now you can even open more people up. So I really think that the finger has to point into each of us first, that once we heal, then things outside of ourselves will begin to heal as well.
So how are you putting forth, what are you going to do next that's going to help education and, for a better word, heal that fear in us? Because that's definitely my intention with everything I do. And I know that's your intention with your films and your documentaries, is to bring a more empowered message, to bring a healing message, for a better word, so that people feel like they can act on these principles and not just talk about them, but act on them. And so I know that's something that you've put forward with I Am. Have you made something since I Am? I'm sure you have, because that was a while ago.
Well, I'm writing a book. I've written 3 screenplays, so they all kind of have I hope, something to add, a piece of the puzzle, the new world that we're looking for. Some very funny films, again, in the vein of A Liar, Liar,
I love
Bruce
the comedy.
Almighty. So we'll get those made pretty soon.
Yeah.
I'll finish up this book, and it's not really up to me. I just keep these doors open, and then the universe, I believe in this thing we call God, the source. Yeah. You can call it source, life, whatever, but that source tells me what's next. Sometimes it's the least expected door opens. So I did not expect I'd be writing a book right after I Am, but that's what I'm doing. That door opened, and it's something I've wanted to do for a while. Timing was different than I thought, but here it is. So I'm excited. I'm basically a servant. I want to serve with whatever talents I have, whatever talents I've been given. I want to just serve with that. And I don't say that in any way other than to say that that's what I believe. When I get to the end of my path, I'll look back and say, wow, I was really wealthy. And it won't be because I have a lot of resources.
Yeah.
anymore, it'll be because my life was a resource.
Yes, exactly. Well, I have to say, you're sounding very much like Oprah. Don't we love Oprah? God bless Oprah. And Oprah obviously was resonating very much with your message, and she had you on some shows. She had you on her Oprah's Wisdom, or what does she call it? Oprah's
her life class.
Her life classes, and you were sitting there, because we don't get them out here in Australia because there hasn't been some deal that's brought them down here yet, which is a shame. We don't get the OWN channel. I'm looking forward to that coming down. How was that for you, working with Oprah and answering all those questions?
Well, it shows me the power when you step into your own heart. And, my head told me, you can't make a movie like this. It's not a big blockbuster. And my heart said, no, you must make this movie. And, I used to watch Oprah and think she has a powerful platform.
Yes.
And I had hoped beyond hope, that one day that film, our film, when we finished it, might be something that appealed to her. We were told repeatedly, you will not get on the show. It's her last season. She's having kings and queens and lords and knights. No, quote, normal people are getting on the show. And
don't you love it
saw
when
the
someone...
movie because Rosie O'Donnell got her the movie. She flipped for it. She's been really enthusiastic. She actually bought it for her network. She had me on one of her last 25 shows. She then had me on a life class. And, it's right when it just feels like you're in a place where you ought to be. I didn't feel, oh my goodness, I'm on the Oprah Winfrey Show. I thought, wonderful. This feels absolutely where I should be, where these ideas should be talked about, and where people can hear them. So it felt right,
yes.
And it felt warm, and I felt supported, and I felt encouraged.
And are you going to do something more like that? Are you going to continue sort of the teaching through media, through, doing classes? I know that you teach at a university. Is it a university? You teach a class of students? Where do you teach?
Yeah, I teach a class called Storytelling in Life, where we use those movies that we were talking about earlier to open up a conversation about decisions that and choices that the young folks will be making in their lives. We try to deconstruct the pressures of school, because they are illusory. That's what society tells you.
Yes.
You don't get a certain grade, your life is over. If you don't get into the right grad school, your life is over. All these things we deconstruct.
Mm-hmm.
And we try to inspire the kids to play their own note, to get into their own heart. So, one of the dreams I have about using media is to, I've been trying to do this for 11 years. Again, it's a door that has not been opened yet, but I think it will be opened. And that is have a talk show on television about these ideas, about the principles about which we can move forward as a society. And I think it would be a very engaging show, because many people will still think we're crazy. They still think I'm nuts for giving away more resources and sharing and not taking as much as I can and all those things. And I love to have a conversation about that.
Well,
and I'd love for people to participate.
Well, I know. Look, me especially, and I've got quite a few friends that have been talking about this for a while. I think people are ready for it. When I was talking to Charlie Johnson last week from the Pay It Forward experience, I was saying that, I've been talking about this stuff for 30 years, but no one was listening even 10 years ago. All that fluffy stuff, we don't want to know about that. Give me the news, I want more news. But I think that, as you say, we're with this shift, there's especially this year, there's this huge shift where people are listening. Their ears are open. They're saying, yes, I want more of it. So when's the chat show starting, Tom?
Well, I hope very soon. We've been talking, we've talked to even Oprah, we talked to OWN, we've talked to a number of networks over here. I'm sure you get HBO and MTV. We're talking to a lot of people about this. I think people are absolutely ready. Right now what's on television is the news, and the news is what's happening, and the news is actually not news. It's all old. We've seen it all before.
Yeah.
There was a shooting today. There was a war that erupted. I want to have something on we don't ever talk about, which is, why do these things happen? Why do they keep happening? Why do they reoccur? Who are we as people, and how do we change this? Do we really want to change this, or is it just simply our nature? And it certainly is not. The human story is so much greater than what we're seeing on television. In fact, we're seeing the exception to the human story. Every time you see a mugging on TV or a car stolen, that is the exception to what happened during that day, because there are millions, incalculable acts of cooperation that took place that do not make the news.
Absolutely.
Doors being held open for people, kind words, meals being shared, resources being shared. That story does not get reported. The exception gets reported, and we take that as the human story, and it is the opposite. So this is what we want to talk about. And as you said, I think people are hungry for it now. They see economies that are broken.
Yeah.
They see, again, a repetitive cycle of this gap between the rich and the poor that's getting wider, and they know that something can be different, and they want to be a part of it.
Well, it's interesting because I've got a lot of friends in media and in quite powerful places in media, and all of them have said to me, oh, but that stuff's boring and people don't want to know about that stuff. People connecting and liking each other and having a good conversation, or, as you say, the norm is people are having a good time, connecting with each other, good things are happening. It's the mugging is the unusual. So what do you say to these people in media that say that's boring and people don't want to know about it?
Yeah, I think that the truth is far more compelling than the game we play on television right now.
Uh-huh.
And now the truth is not without shadow. There's tons of shadow that have to be talked about.
Yes.
We still face disease. We still face all kinds of challenges.
Contrast.
There's a lot of life to talk about. It is the nitty-gritty. What I think people refer to when they think about a show like this is you oftentimes find shows like this, they kind of float. They're kind of, let's all talk about peace and love and harmony. That is not what the show is to be about. It is about life. It is about the meat and marrow. What makes us laugh? What makes us cry? What are our challenges? What are we battling today to get to the next level? I have no question. That's the paradigm speaking when someone says, yeah, that's kind of boring. We'd rather have people build walls. In other words, I call you an idiot, you call me an idiot, we build a wall between each other. Nobody really learns anything, and that's all we know right now, so we think that that's entertaining. And I say when you break that wall down and you begin to see my vulnerability and I begin to see your truth and your vulnerability, that is entertaining. That will hold attention. I know because when I speak and when I'm in my classes with my students, those classes go from 45 kids to 120 kids at capacity because people start to come. People are hungry for something of meaning in their lives. And the wall that you build between each other has very little meaning.
Well, so, it's probably why reality shows are so popular, because you do see people's vulnerability. It's not rehearsed. So you get to see people's vulnerability and how they react and how they don't react. And
it's ironic. Reality on the one hand is anything but reality because it's invented. It's manufactured. It is not, quote-unquote, reality. However, it does base itself on classic dramatic principles. You find characters that are often extreme in their behavior. You find a lot of drama and a lot of conflict.
Yes.
So there are things about reality shows that actually inform us about who we are, the stories we like to see, but they're also a bit of a manufactured train wreck. Yeah. And as a species, we have to decide if we want to manufacture train wrecks. You can't not look at a train wreck when you're in your car and you're moving. You got to turn your head and see the accident. But why are we creating these accidents is the question. Why is that what we have put out for ourselves now as what we want to put forth in terms of media and a message? And I think all that, again, is open for conversation and question. And when people start to want something different, they want to stop craning their necks at the accident, then reality shows will shift. They can be more constructive, still very dramatic. There are still diseases to conquer. There's still a natural world that may be kicking our butts off the planet. There's all kinds of stuff, that's dramatic, but those shows maybe can be tweaked to bring out and accentuate more of the positive than the train wreck aspects that they bring out now.
Yeah, well, I love the whole getting over the adversity because, I teach law of attraction and everyone's banging the drum of, I'm going to buy into this law of attraction and have this smooth ride and my life's going to be easy street and I'm going to make lots of money and I'm going to be rich and famous and all that sort of thing. But law of attraction's not about that. Law of attraction, because as you say, we live in this contrasting environment, so stuff happens, like the drama happens, but how do you get over it? How do you work through it? How are you on the journey? So, as you say, it's great to sort of see the drama. I'm having a conversation with a young man who was a diver, and when he was coming up, he came up too quickly and he was paralyzed. Didn't stop him. A year later, he's climbing mountains, he's in a wheelchair, he's playing drums, he's teaching kids. Didn't stop him. It's like that's the sort of thing that's juicy that I find interesting. Drama happens. We get divorced and we lose our jobs and we lose our money. But how do we accentuate the positive in that?
Well, it's like my favorite poet is a gentleman named Hafiz. He was a mystic poet from Persia, and he was asked about suffering and why all this suffering. And his perspective on suffering was that think of it as being washed, as being cleansed, as being purified. And he said of himself that he was always soaking, that he was always dripping wet. And so it's really how you look at the difficulties in life. The difficulties in life are part of life. the human species only knows pleasure because it can experience pain.
Yes.
We only know love because we can experience its opposite,
Loss.
which is really apathy and lack of love. So these ebbs and flows, these shadows are actually essential to light. We don't want a khaki world. That's why I think people look at the show that we talked about earlier and said, "No, it'll never work because it's going to be all khaki."
Yeah,
It's not khaki.
Not
it's
khaki.
full of this drama. But it's the perspective you take on the drama. You either say life sucks, life is cruel, life is unfair, or you say there's something here. There's some beauty here. Everything that dies gets reborn. That's the way it is in nature, right? Everything, there's a cycle, right? There are limits in nature. And when you understand that, that's life, and that's part of the beauty of life. You feel the pain of those events, but they don't drag you down.
Yes.
That you use them as a lump of coal uses the pressure to turn itself into a diamond. It's really about how you look at things.
Yeah, they say the best recipe in the world is hunger.
and hunger meaning not just I take the material, the hunger for food, but the hunger for growth. I take it for light, for truth. Is that right?
Yeah, well, you've added more meaning to that, but yes, I was talking about food. Nothing tastes better than when you're hungry, like the worst food.
No,
but
I understand, but hunger comes in so many different ways.
In so many ways. Hunger for life, absolutely. I think apathy is the death of the spirit, and hunger for life is definitely the joy of the journey. Absolutely.
Yeah. So many people, I think, they misunderstand the law of attraction. The law of attraction is actually a law. It's the law of cause and effect. What you put out, you get back. So the intention with which you put something out is everything. If you are putting something out for selfish reasons, I want to get money, I want to get a nicer car than my neighbor, I want to get a bigger house, what you are going to attract back is the law of that selfishness, is the bounce back. So you may get a thing, or you may not get a thing, but the energy with which you put it out is what comes back. So there's really only one pure intention, and that is the intention to serve the truth that is in you. However, life, source, God is working through you to say, yes, I want to serve that fully. And what I feel like is I want to finish this book, but I leave that in the hands of the divine. Maybe one person will read it, maybe no one will read it. Maybe the publisher will look at it and reject it, but what I am to do is to serve it. So the intention is always to serve.
It's interesting what you say about the law of attraction, because you say what you put out, you get back. And look, some people's truth is, I want to make a lot of money, and they put out that and they get it back. But here's the thing. Everyone thinks that when they get what they want, they'll be happy. And what people notice is, as you did, that when you get the stuff, when you get the success, it's actually not giving you more happiness, because happiness isn't coming from what you're manifesting in your physical life. It's coming from what you're manifesting in your emotional life. So
what makes a person happier is when they bring forth that which is within them, that truth. So, someone like Oprah, for example, I know Oprah believes in the law of attraction very deeply.
Yeah.
But what was in Oprah was not that she was going to be a quote-unquote billionaire. What was in Oprah was she knew that she had a voice that needed expression. She knew that she had something to share. She knew that. That was part of her destiny, part of her journey. And so that's why that manifested. It was true for her. And what so often happens in the law of attraction and with The Secret is people don't really know what they want. They think they want the house because it's going to make them happy. They think they want the job status because it's going to make them happy. And that's not really what they want. What they want is a life of meaning, beauty, and purpose. They want to be of value to someone else, and they want to feel love reflected back.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really what everybody wants, but our society poisons us into thinking we want things that are not actually what we want. It's part of a story we tell ourselves that's got to be reinvented, that does not pay.
I hear that you do private sessions. You counsel people privately, one-on-one. Tell me about that.
Well, yeah, it's part of my teaching at the collegiate level. I feel that the only way to really educate a student is to get to know a student, is to know what they're struggling with, what questions they have, what inspires them, what they love. Education needs, at least certainly in our country, I'm not sure how you guys do it, but here we drill things into kids. We tell them what they need to know. And the word education comes from the Latin word educato, meaning to draw out.
Yes.
So what education ought to be doing is drawing out the uniqueness of each student, the talent, the passions of each student. Instead, we put them into molds of our own making, and that can depress children and inhibit creativity. So I talk to my students and find out how I can best serve them.
Oh, it's so funny that you say that. You'll have to have a look at my website because I've got that in the byline of on the side of my website. Education is not to put in but to draw out.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I so agree with you. And so I just want to ask you quickly, how do you see the education system changing? How do you see the future? What's your vision of the future in your paradigm and the one?
Well, it's very simple. Everybody thinks the world's problems are very, very complicated, and they're very, very simple. The how they manifest in terms of solution may be complicated, but the dynamic that needs to shift is simply we must widen our circle of compassions, as Einstein said. We must embrace all of mankind as brothers and sisters, as family, and the whole of the natural world. So there was actually a study done recently on where human beings come from. They traced the DNA of the human species. We all, 2,000 generations ago, we all had the same two parents. So we really are all family and brothers and sisters. 2,000 years ago, we would have had a heck of a Christmas because we all would have been there at the celebration. So once we actually embrace that even if I win at something, that winning is for all of us. That winning is not just for me. So what I think in the future is going to happen is we are going to serve each other. What we now call non-profits, which is a nonsensical word because it's a non-something instead of a positive. What we now call non-profits are going to be the norm, where people are going to take what they need, they're going to take care of themselves and their family. It's going to all be voluntary. It's not going to be because some system has arisen. The system may come later, but we're going to serve each other. Because when we get to the end of our lives, that's what we all know right now is how we will look back on our lives and say, wow, that was a beautiful ride. That was a beautiful ride. So get ready for service, my dear. It's coming.
Oh, darling, I'm doing it right now. We're on
I know you are.
We're on community radio
here,
down here in Australia, and everyone that's on community radio does it as service. We don't get paid. We all do it because we're passionate about something, whether it be music or whether it be education or accentuating the positive. We're all doing it because it's a passion and we're driven by the passion. So everyone on this radio station is driven by their passion and they're giving it as a service. So that's what we're doing down here.
So your radio station is an example of the future existing right now. It really is. And I honor everybody that is there working because they care about something, they care about the energy you put out in the world, and they are paving the way for what is to come.
Well, I have to say, Tom, I think they'd prefer to be paid. And many of them...
No, I understand that. No, listen, the future is not everybody works for free. Everybody still needs to take care of themselves, and they need to have places to live and food, etc. Yeah. But because you do it with such passion, and you do say, okay, you're not going to pay me, I'm going to get a reward that is even greater than the money you would ever give me, and still do it.
Well, that's exactly right.
That paves the way for the more reasonable way.
That's exactly right. I mean, this is why we do it, because the reward is greater than the money, because, being able to talk to people like you and Charlie Johnson and Julie Genovese and all the fabulous people that I talk to, and be able to talk to the callers that call up that say, I love your show, you're changing my life, that is the reward. I mean, it really is the reward. It's fantastic.
I agree. Same for me.
Oh, darling, I could talk with you all day, but I know you've got to go. It's been such a joy and a pleasure to talk with you. And come on down under. We'd love to have you down under to present your movie, I Am, because I don't know if Australians can actually, I guess you can buy it. Can you buy it from your website? Can you get it from your website?
I'm pretty sure they can, but I'm not 100% sure. We did just sell it internationally. Universal bought the rights and are distributing it worldwide now. So, look, I want to get it to Australia. Hopefully you can. The website is iamthedoc.com, iamthedoc.com, so they can check there and see where it's available. I know it's been on iTunes and other things, but hopefully in your country as well.
And would you like to give away one of the movies to a caller?
Of course.
Yeah, I'll organise that. I'll organise that with Harold. So the first subscriber, because we have subscribers to this radio station.
We'll give you more than one.
How many are you going to give us, Tom?
Whatever you want. We'll start. I'll tell you what. We'll start with 25 if you have that kind of listenership.
Yeah, we sure
but
do.
If you want 25, we'll be happy to send you 25 movies. Please give them away. All the money from I Am goes back to your callers anyway. So we would love to support you. So,
well, that's fantastic. 25.
Yeah, I'll tell Harold I just made this commitment, but it's no worries. It's actually a pleasure to do.
That's great. That's wonderful. That's so great. Thank you so much. And I'm going to say it to you again. When are you coming down under? When are you going to come to Australia? We're in Sydney.
Well, you and Harold talk about it, and I'm coming, man.
You're coming.
To come. I told you there.
Are you going to come in 2012? Because I know you're a busy guy. You've got books to write. You've got people to educate. You've got Oprah to talk to. You're a busy guy.
And I've got Australians to meet.
You've got Australians to meet. You must have spoke to Rocco about it, because Rocco was down here and he had a blast.
Oh, he had a wonderful time.
Yeah,
He's my brother. He lives 10 houses away. He loved it. He said it was a beautiful experience. The movie was really well received. And listen, man, I was jealous. I'll be there in a minute.
Yes. It's a great place, I have to say. Australia is a fantastic place. Oh, honey, thank you so much for talking with us today.
What a joy. Thank you. You have a blessed day.
Thanks, Tom. That was Tom Shadyac, a Hollywood producer, director, writer, guru, as he says, sexy guru. He's a bit gorgeous. Talking to me about his journey and his fantastic documentary, I Am.